Alright, finally have it in my hot little hands. Amouage Reflection 45 Man. Have you tried it yet? Well, I've been anticipating this one for some time. I actually featured it in an anticipation video, and here it is, and I'm going to talk to you about it today. But I'm going to talk to you about it and also compare it to the original Reflection Man. So, Amouage Reflection 45 Man compared with Amouage Reflection Man, coming right up. Thanks so much for tuning in. This is Sebastian, and yes, today I'm talking about Amouage Reflection 45 Man. It comes almost a year, or actually probably a year after Interlude 53 Man was launched. Really a great version of Interlude Man. Now we have this one, a Reflection 45 Man. And do you know what the numbers mean in these fragrances? You have Interlude 53 and you have Reflection 45. So it stands for the concentration. So according to Amouage, this is 45% concentration, meaning 45% perfume oil, which is almost 50%, whereas Interlude 53 was above 50%, it's 53% perfume oil. This is 45, so close to the 50% line. But generally though, Extrait Parfum fragrances are around 30%, so you're getting about 15% more concentration. I'm digging it. I'm really digging it, but to me, it faintly hints at the original, and then it's a different fragrance. You'll be reminded of the original fragrance though. But either way, I'll let you know the differences and how they smell. Before I do though, if this is your first time tuning into the channel and you still haven't subscribed, please do click the subscribe button below and also click the bell so that you'll be notified for future videos and giveaways. So I think Reflection Man was one of my very first Amouage fragrance purchases. I think once I sampled it, I really enjoyed it, and I started exploring other Amouage fragrances. After this came Lyric Man and a few others, and then so on, its history after that. But I really dig this one, and when I first sampled it, I had thought to myself, it kind of hints at something like Fleur de Mal from the house of Jean-Paul Gaultier, the discontinued and very sought after fragrance. Yes, it does, because it does feature Neroli in here. But they're not identical fragrances. It does hint at it. So I really enjoy this one, and I've had a review on the old channel, and I have a review on the current channel. In fact, my review went up for this probably about 3-4 years ago around Thanksgiving. In fact, I think it launched on Thanksgiving Day, so it's a kind of an anniversary that I'm doing a comparison of these two. But this is the 2021 launch. Lucas Sieuzac is the same perfumer of this as the original, obviously. It's the same perfume pretty much, but changed around. So this is the disappointing part about this fragrance. It's very expensive. It's 100 ml for $480. That's also considered a woody floral musk, same as the original. Let me tell you why they charge that much money. So as I said, this is Extrait de Parfum at 45% concentration, so 45% perfume oil. And generally, Extrait de Parfum fragrances are around 30%. This is Eau de Parfum, so it would be around 20% perfume oil. So that's kind of the difference, and that's kind of why they're charging you so much more money. But this has matured and macerated. So this is considered batch 1, that this is the very first batch. Maturation 10 weeks, maceration 6 weeks. And that's kind of what it takes to kind of create this particular fragrance. So they're maturing it for 10 weeks and macerating it for 6 weeks. So you've got about four or so months that they've actually been waiting for it to hit the market. But what's the difference between the two? You know, first of all, as I should say, and I did mention it for this particular fragrance, this reminded me, or still reminds me, of Fleur de Mal because of that very prominent Neroli note in here. But it's a lot of jasmine, so there's lots of jasmine in this one. With Neroli, there's also Orris or Iris, so it's a powdery experience. I don't get that reminder with this particular version. It does not remind me of Fleur de Mal from Jean-Paul Gaultier. And as I said, it's not like a very big reminder, but it hints at it because of the Neroli in that one. And even though this has it in there, the Neroli, it does not hint at Fleur de Mal. That powderiness, that airy powderiness is, I guess the visual would be for you to throw powder up in the air and have that powder kind of like, you know, float around in the air. You get that here, but you don't get that here. So this is like the first noticeable difference. And you'll also notice that this is deeper and richer and a lot more intense than the original. Now when I say a lot more intense, I'm talking about the smell, I'm not talking about the performance, because that's another story and I'll get to it in a little bit. The smell is very, very intense. There's light, rough around the edges kind of a quality, like a little bit of animalic, a little dirt. Not as in like animalic dirty, but there are light animalic touches, and then there's also like light dirt touches. So it smells a little rough, and I think it's because of all the resins and all the kind of balsamic notes in here, the resinous notes. Just seems very, very strong and very, very concentrated. Very, very noticeable. So when I spray the two, you'll notice that this is actually floating up in the air, and as I mentioned, that powder that you throw up and then it's kind of floating, and when I throw this up there, it's going to sink because it's a lot heavier in experience when you're wearing them. But you know, this is for me mostly about the frankincense. And you know, is it smoky? No, it doesn't act very, very smoky. It's more about the resin itself, the smell of the resin. For me, that kind of is what stands out in comparison to this, which is the jasmine. Where's the frankincense in here is not in here, or vice versa, I should say. The jasmine is into both fragrances, but this one doesn't have that frankincense, which has that kind of like very, very weighty, dense kind of an experience. But with this particular fragrance, it's lots of frankincense, jasmine, juniper berries, neroli, benzoin, myrrh, clary sage, patchouli, cedar, angelica, Orris. So those are all the notes that's mentioned. So basically what we've been given is reflection man in an amber form, whereas it'll remind you of what a reflection man smells like. You know, it gives you that hint, but then it changes and it kind of becomes more of a resinous balsamic ambery experience with all the resins that are in here. So the neroli comes in, but it's not reminding me of fleur de mal. It's not intense. The jasmine comes in, and the jasmine again is basically the star of both of them. But in here, it's not as intense as it is in the original Reflection Man. The iris comes in here as well, and yes, it's powdery, but it's still not as prominent that iris is in here in comparison to this one. For me, this one is mostly about the frankincense, the benzoin, the myrrh. All of these come in a lot, and it does become overwhelming, and I think that's why it takes the fragrance into more of an ambery direction, a resinous balsamic direction, and you'll definitely experience it. Yes, there is a little bit of roughness in this particular fragrance. I think it's because the concentration that it is, so concentrated, kind of brings out all the nooks and crannies of all those resins that are in here, so you definitely experience them. And you know, it's actual, you know, from nature, the resins. So there is kind of a natural smell, and it kind of is amplified in this particular fragrance. And same with Interlude 53, whereas I felt like there was a kind of a very natural, intense, earthy, you know, kind of can be put off, like it could be off-putting kind of a smell at first, because you get everything amplified, very, very concentrated, and there is a little bit of that dirtiness that comes in. But I loved Interlude 53. I felt like it was a great version of the original Interlude Man. A very, very intense version of it. But here's the part about the intensity that I wanted to get to when I mentioned at the beginning. What I like about the intensity of these fragrances does not necessarily mean it's going to like project and become over the top, you know, sillage and things like that. For me, I feel like it's so concentrated, and the more concentrated a fragrance gets, as in the oils and things like that, for me, takes away from the sillage a little bit, the cloud. I feel like it becomes a little bit more subdued. Not all the time. I've noticed this in certain fragrances, and not all the time. Sometimes it does become really, really loud, but I think this, for me, is a longer lasting fragrance, an intense version of it, a very rich, dense, and very luxurious, concentrated version of Reflection Man, but doesn't necessarily mean the cloud's going to be over the top, you know? Yes, it is definitely, you know, it definitely is over the top at first, but I feel like with the Eau de Parfum here, you get a little bit more of a sillage happening a little longer, whereas this one, you know, lasts longer on your skin, which is what was happening, but doesn't project as loudly. This is a lot more powdery, and you get to experience the flowers a lot more. You're experiencing the jasmine a lot more here, and you actually smells. It smells fresher when you compare it to this, and I think because the flowers are a lot more prominent or present here than they are here. And this is reversed, as I said. Lots of resins here, which were not even in this particular fragrance, so you get to experience the freshness, a lot more powderiness, but it's the kind of powder you can see through, you know, it's not dense. And I said the powder in here rises, but the powder in here, you know, sinks, falls down, and that's exactly what the experience is between these two. This, to me, is one of the ultimate in powdery and floral fragrances for men. For me, even though this reminds me of that, now it's not necessarily ultra powdery or ultra, you know, floral. It's become a completely different fragrance, still hinting at the original, but wearing it as a completely different fragrance, as in becoming very, very ambery, resinous, and balsamic. You know, I like it. I really enjoy it, and I like its concentration. And even though it hints at the original Reflection Man, I like it, Reflection Man, for what it is, you know? I like that. It deserves to be that particular fragrance. This concentrated version of Reflection 45 Man is a different fragrance. It acts like a very, very different fragrance to me. Even though it's got that hint, then it becomes a different fragrance. In comparison to Interlude 53, I felt like Interlude 53 was almost identical with minor changes, still reminding me of, you know, the way the original fragrance was. Here I feel like they've given us something completely different because, and this is because, the notes are so reversed, and I'm experiencing the resins and, you know, ambery touches in here a lot more than I did or do with that particular fragrance. Yes, Interlude 53 is a very concentrated version of Interlude Man. I think maybe I'm not making sense. It is a concentrated version of the original Interlude Man, whereas here you have somewhat of a different fragrance. So is it a flanker of the original? Yes, it is. It's a different take on the original, a lot more concentrated, and it feels like a little different of a fragrance because of all the resins. Anyway, that's my thoughts on it. I do enjoy it. It is very, very overpriced. I think the pricing is very, very high. I think if you're a big fan of the original and you want more of an amber resinous balsamic version of the original, get yourself a bottle, or maybe smell it. If you can't smell it in stores, smell it. Or if you're able to get a sample somewhere, get a sample to test it out. You might get it and think, oh my god, I'm getting this concentrated version of Reflection Man, but what I have is something completely different. It doesn't even smell like it. Anyway, noses are different. This is me. I'm explaining what I'm experiencing with this particular fragrance, and to me, even though it'll, you know, have that reminder of the original Reflection Man, to me, Reflection 45 Man is a completely different fragrance. Anyway, those are my thoughts on this particular fragrance. I hope you guys have tried this and are curious to try it. Are you a fan of the original Reflection Man? And are you curious to try this one if you haven't yet? Let me know, put some comments down. What do you think about the price and all the concentration and maturation and maceration that goes into putting this particular fragrance together? Put some comments down so I can find out. Either way, guys, thanks so much for watching today's video. If you have any questions or comments, please list below. Please like this video, please share it, follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and I'll be back with more videos very soon. Have a good one. Goodbye.